Okay. Fingers crossed.
I'll play the intro and I'll say some words.
Say some words, brother. Oh boy.
Whoa. Well, hello. Welcome to the Showboys podcast. I am Dad, and I'm joined tonight by my good friend Chadwick III. Now, just from the little bit you shared with me, I figured our listeners are curious to know how you're doing tonight.
Yeah, not great. Yeah, not great. Yeah, I don't know. My partner at work is puking sick, and I've been fighting puking off all day. I've not puked yet, but it's almost worse, like fighting it off.
Yes.
Like at some point, like I hate puking, but at some point it's just
terrible.
like I should just puke and get
it over
with
and feel better.
Yeah, I feel better because this has been all day long. And then sometimes like I have a prescription for Zofran. Sometimes I feel like if I take that, it's just going to prolong whatever the hell's in there that's making me sick. I don't know if that's even accurate, but
yeah, there's something about like feeling nauseous all freaking day.
I hate it. I absolutely hate it.
And guess, look what I found.
Down with the sickness. Yeah, that's for a couple years ago. Yeah, I was like emergency room sick.
Oh wow!
During the making of that little snippet there. But yeah, I'm doing all right. I mean, I think I'm okay. I think the Zofran's kicked in a little bit. My memory of this movie has gone away a little bit. So the nausea that was caused by rewatching this movie is maybe gone.
Oh boy, yeah, because it was it was pretty crazy. Yeah, I'm also struggling with a little bit of sickness, not the same type of sickness, but like the cold, just real stuffy and congested crap. You know how we were talking about earlier. The kids bring home all this type of crap from school, and
and whatever it is like significantly gnarlier than the shit that we just get like between adults. Like if you get something from them, dude, like you're down for the count. And that actually that graphic is from Brady bringing the stomach bug home. Oh. So the way it goes normally with kids is like they puke one time and they're fine. And then if you get that, you're in the ER. Like dying on your deathbed. That's how it goes.
You're done. Call the ambulance.
It's awful. Yeah, I hate this time of the year, dude. I wish I could go back to summer because nobody ever gets sick in summer. Like it's a rarity that somebody gets sick in summer, so it's peaceful. And here through the winter, at least in this house, every week somebody's sick. Every week somebody's got something.
Yeah, a friend of mine, his whole family, like between all of them, it's been like a month that they've been sick. I'm like, man, I feel it. Having a big family, it really sucks.
It's awful, dude.
It's inevitable.
The year after COVID was the worst for us because like the kids had not been exposed to anything. They were wearing masks. If they were even going to school, they were out of school for a while. So when they came back that next year, dude, they just I was like, dude, are you like licking your desks at school? Like, how are you getting sick so much? Like, this is absurd.
They're like licking each other.
Yeah, like what are you guys doing?
Oh my goodness. So yeah, that's what's going on with us. We're here. We're making this thing happen.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, dedicated. Right? Yeah. To be fair, this is all on us because we should have done this friggin' months ago.
It's true. It's true, and it's a shame that it took us this long.
Yeah.
But hey, it worked out. I think it worked out perfectly because by the time this airs, it'll be Halloween. So happy Halloween! A great exclamation point to the month. Yeah. But yeah, I wish we could have done it sooner, but things happen. Life happens.
Yeah. So I went and saw this movie in the theater. Around the original time we had planned to do this.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually went by myself. I've never gone to the theater by myself. It was kind of chill, dude. I had it was like I went at like noon on like random land, like Wednesday or Thursday or something, and it was me and one other dude in the XD theater. It was just the two of us. It was awesome.
That is cool.
So I saw this a while ago, and actually, when we get into the movie, I'll bring up a little bit about that, because I have now purchased this movie and watched it on the TV as well. And there are two things that stick out to me. Like, there's a couple things that I picked up on that I couldn't see in the theater. And then there's something that is just wildly offensive on the TV that wasn't as offensive on the movie screen. And we'll get to that. But it's like really, really bad in the 4K release of this movie. So,
oh boy.
But okay.
Before we get into that, let's do a quick shout out to our top tier patrons, Tim B, Yusuf H, and Joe C. We thank you for your support. Thank you to all of our other lovely patrons. If you're curious about Patreon, go over to patreon.com/showboys. Sign up, be a team player, help us out. We love you. But yes, this movie. Let's do first impressions first. Chad, what are your overall spoiler-free thoughts about this movie?
So, when I watched it in the theater, I really freaking enjoyed it. Mm-hmm. Now that I have seen it a total of 3 times, I am fighting to not put this at my number 1 Alien movie of all time. And wow. I think that after this third rewatch that I did today, dude, there's just every element in this movie is perfect. And it hits on a lot of different things that I think the more recent Prometheus and Alien Covenant miss. Mm-hmm. That's that kind of claustrophobic, I'm on a spaceship in the middle of space, terrifying feeling. And that doesn't come across on Prometheus because they're on a planet. Alien Covenant, a good chunk of the movie, they're also on a planet. So that you lose that kind of what the original was built off of, which is this claustrophobic, like, there's nowhere to go, dude. Where are you going to go? This thing there and you can't go anywhere. So it brings a lot of that back for me. And dude, the score of this movie is insanely good.
It's so good.
So good. And it hits all at the right moments. Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's just a lot to love here. I do have like some minor gripes, but they're very, very minor. Some of them with the visuals of the movie, a visual of the specific part of the movie that we'll get into. Mm-hmm. But overall, dude, yeah, it's like neck and neck. So Aliens has always been my favorite, which I think is maybe kind of like a red herring maybe for Alien fans, because it feels so different from the original movie. Mm-hmm. But it's just, when you're a kid, you want that action, and Aliens gives you that intense action.
The rifles, yep.
The rifles and the freaking cheesy Marines and everything about Aliens. And this kind of, for me, this movie kind of combines the two, where we don't have a single alien in this movie like we do in the original. We have multiple like we did in Aliens, but it also has that horror vibe. Aliens kind of loses the horror vibe. There are scary parts of it, don't get me wrong, but it brings back the horror and just the sticking. And it's funny because I watched it at work with a couple of guys that I work with, and one of the guys commented, like, I love how the futuristic movies that take place in the future always have like super old technology. And I was like, that's actually done on purpose here, because that's how the original was. It was a 1980s look to the future. You know what I mean?
They maintain that same look.
Maintain it. I love it. I love everything.
Well, because this is what, like 20 years after the first one, technically, and then before Aliens.
Yep.
So it should look and feel the same.
Yeah,
and it does.
It does
right out the gate.
Yeah.
So I set the bar low. I wasn't really sure what to expect.
Yeah.
It looked, I mean, just from the preview, the trailer alone, it looked cool. I'm like, oh, this looks kind of reminiscent of the first, I wasn't sure if it was just going to be another Alien movie. And I had actually I gave up on Alien. Like after I can't even tell you what order I watched them in, but I think somewhere around the time of Alien versus Predator, I kind of gave up. Because it just started getting goofy.
Well, if you look at the up until Prometheus, everything pre-Prometheus, there were far more misses in the Alien franchise than there were hits. Really, the only hits for me were Alien and Aliens.
Yeah.
Outside of that, Alien 3 sucks. The CGI is horrendous in that movie. Alien Resurrection, like I don't even know what the hell is going on in half that movie. Like I don't even know why it exists. And then the Alien versus the Predator thing is just like a weird mashup that I don't even know that I would throw that into the Alien franchise as a whole.
I mean, it's something that I was very excited for because you knew it was going to happen.
Yeah.
Especially since like Predator 2, like they kind of hinted at that.
Yeah, they had
the ship
skull up on the ship. Yeah.
I'm like, okay, let's do this. And then I was done.
Yeah, I mean, those movies from a storytelling perspective are horrendous, but there are some cool fight and action sequences between the two creatures.
I really did enjoy this movie. First impression, I was blown away. I some of it was predictable. There were some things that I'm like, oh yeah, I could see this coming, and it happened. I'm like, yeah. But still, like, there's a specific scene or a specific sequence that takes place that I knew they were going there, but I was still like, the shock factor of it was so like jarring, and like the body horror elements of this movie were
bad.
outrageous.
Yeah, dude. Yeah.
Yep. But good. Like I couldn't
look away.
Like,
couldn't look away. Yeah. And that when you look at the franchise as a whole, that's really what I mean, for me at least, it's just the griminess of these things. Like they're always dripping wet. The xenomorphs are always like dripping slimy wet, which is disgusting. And then the structures that they build with the like cocoons and stuff, like all that stuff is real nasty to look at.
Yes.
And it sticks out here in several parts of the movie where I was like, especially like we'll get into it later in the movie, but when the alien like has its first like growth spurt in that like sack on the wall, I was like, dude, like this is disgusting, bro.
Are you talking about the part with the like the electric pole?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
So you did enjoy it.
I did, and I think what helped was taking a break from it for so long.
Yeah.
That it was more fresh.
Yeah. That's virtually the same. Yeah, that's the same exact experience I had. I mean, I walked away from it enjoying it. We'll get to it later, but I freaking hate the ending of this movie. So that I think stuck out to me very badly when I watched it in the theater. But then once I was able to separate some time between it, rewatch it twice, I was like, dude, this is really good. Like everything here is on point. The score just kicks on perfect moments. We get some of the best, I think, face hugger horror sequences that we've ever got in the franchise in this movie. But yeah,
they did an amazing job with these freaking face huggers, and like
so good.
Probably the most we've ever seen in a movie, like together, like a pack of them.
Yeah,
like
so good, dude. And it's funny because so I'm watching it with guys at work, and we're watching it with one of the older guys, but he has played Halo. He loves Halo. So he's like, man, this is making me really want to play Halo. And then one of the sequences right before the big face hugger scene, he's like waiting for the flood to bust through the doors. I was like, it's ironic that you say that because that's kind of what these things are like in this movie is the flood from Halo. So, yeah, I don't know, man. There's just I think for me personally, there's a heck of a lot more to love in this movie than there is to hate.
I would agree. So how do you want to break this apart? Do you want to kind of just go through it? Like,
let's just
part by part. So the beginning, we're in space. There is a ship. Actually, there's a ship that turns on and they're going through, and I don't know if it's that ship that picks up the rock.
Yeah.
But there's a group of people that pick up a rock and break it apart and take it for whatever.
So this is one of the parts that when I saw it in the theater, I didn't know what the hell this thing was. Even after they cut it open, I was like, what? It's so dark in there. And that I don't know. It's like everything's darker when you watch it on the theater.
Yeah.
Or in the theater. So I was like, I don't even know what the hell that was. Like, I knew that it was super tense because the music like spikes and everything, but I don't know what the hell I was looking at. But once I saw it in the theater, yeah. So the premise here, and I actually love this first part with this ship opening up because that happens in almost every Alien movie. And without this sequence at the beginning, it wouldn't happen in this one because we kind of start on a planet in this movie. So we wouldn't have that waking up from hyper sleep moment like all the Alien movies have.
Mm-hmm.
So we get that here a little bit where the ship's turning on and Mother's turning on and it's saying where they're at, Zeta Reticuli, which is where the first movie kind of takes place in that region of space. And we're at the Nostromo wreckage, which is from the first movie after it blew up. And the scientists from Weyland-Yutani are going to pick up this specimen I think the hope was to go retrieve this specimen. I don't know if they knew it was there. They were just going to go look for it, and they end up finding a giant cocoon, basically, I guess is what this thing is.
It's like a fossil kind of is how
it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so they've always discussed, like, I don't know if they've ever really discussed it in the movies, but like the expanded universe discusses like how these creatures, the xenomorph, they don't really need like oxygen or food or anything to survive. So it's not out of the realm of possibility. This dude at the end of the first movie just cocooned himself and floated around in space until some idiot came and picked him up. So I actually really enjoyed that.
Yeah.
And it's got that like, when they're cutting it open in the beginning here, it's got that like stranger. It reminded me of Stranger Things, like people on a walkway and weird costumes watching something going on. But yeah, it was nice to see what was actually. So what I was missing in the theater is like the imprint of the xenomorph in the rock, which was just a black blob basically. And I was like, oh, cool. A space rock they picked up.
Super tense moment. I'm feeling it, but I don't know why.
Yeah. But it's, after that opening scene, we go over to Jackson Star, which is a mining colony. And this is cool because for my money, everything that we've ever seen in the Alien franchise outside of some of Prometheus and some of Covenant that has taken place on a planet has really kind of sucked. Like it's not interesting. This to me is super freaking interesting.
And it wasn't that long. They didn't really spend too much time here.
No, they
showed
setting up the character,
the crappy place it is, how Weyland has like turned it into a slave colony basically, where you have to like mine. You have like certain amount of like mining hours that you have to like meet, like a quota or whatever. And this is where we meet Rain and her brother Andy.
Yep.
Which he seemed weird to me at first. It didn't really click that he was an android. But the whole like one of my favorite things about this movie was them. They're like dynamic, especially Andy. Dude, this actor,
so good.
The way he just like flips a switch like an android would.
Yeah.
And I think even his like his blah 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 his I can't think of the word, the way he talks, his like accent changes.
Yeah. So when I first watched this movie, I wasn't vibing with that character in the beginning. Just because I was like, what? Like, so the androids in the movie, there's something wrong with them. And the androids in the movie have notoriously always been incredibly intelligent, right? So it seemed out of place. But once on the rewatch, and I missed this in the theater, Rain says like my dad programmed him, and her dad's I think just a miner. So it actually makes sense that he programmed this, but he doesn't have everything down. So it's not really working at the level of all the other androids, which I thought was pretty brilliant after I heard that comment.
Because he's not a Weyland android.
Right.
He's just an android that was programmed by a regular guy.
Yeah. So I with the second, third rewatches, I actually really like Andy, especially like you said, the acting of this kid to basically swap characters midway through the movie and become one of these super intelligent androids from his slow, can barely put a sentence together beginning of the movie.
Telling crappy dad jokes.
Telling crappy dad jokes, yeah. And it was funny because I guess I can talk about this. Doesn't really matter. We have an overtime problem at work right now on my shift. So we're getting mandated overtime. Mm-hmm. So it like really hit home when she went into the mining thing and she's like, I finished all my hours. And they're like, actually, we're going to add another 2,400 hours onto you. So we'll see you for another 5 or 6 years. I was like, oh my gosh, dude, that's like leaving every shift here in the morning. They're like, oh, by the way, you got to be here another 24 hours.
You got to come back tomorrow.
Yeah. So that was funny.
Well, because it showed that screen saying that she had met that quota. Yeah. But then they were like, oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Wayland appreciates your hard work.
Yeah. And it just shows how dirty and grimy this company is. Like we've seen that throughout the entirety of the franchise, how they're willing to do absolutely anything to get their end goal. But it is cool
anything. Yeah.
Yeah. It is cool to start on a planet here. It's a planet that I thought was pretty visually stunning, especially once we leave it and go out into space. It's very stunning from outside, but no sunlight, zero hours of sunlight in a year, it says at the beginning there, which I thought was really cool. And you could presume that that's from the clouds from whatever mining that they're doing, covering the atmosphere so the sun's not getting in, because there is a sun up there that we find out.
And if they show, I mean, when they leave and go above the clouds, it's just a thick
cloud of
And it's like the first time they've seen the sun, which is wild.
Yeah, which is cool because when you first start the movie, you almost get under the impression that these are like kids, and I think they're meant to be like in their 20s, but they're all very young looking.
Yes.
So I took it as like this ragtag team of kids that were going to go up into space, go ahead. No, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, like, during the trailer, that kind of threw me off a little bit. Like, oh, it's gonna be one of those like teen type movies.
Yeah.
Like, I'm like, I'm not jiving with that too much. But after watching it, I'm like, yeah, okay. I mean, I would say most of them, I was like, okay, well, they're gonna die, and I'm not gonna feel bad about it.
Yeah,
But no, I mean, they built these characters pretty well. But I definitely enjoyed Rain and Andy the most.
Yeah, I would agree with that. They're definitely the best characters out of all of them. So the basic setup here, and I had some questions from the guys who were watching with it last night. They were like, how they take off in this ship, right? So the plan is they're all basically slaves on this thing. They're stuck here doing their hours. We see that Weyland-Yutani's probably never going to let these guys go, even if they hit their hours. She hits them and they just add another 2,400 or 24,000, whatever it is. And they're trying to get to another planet called Yvaga, I think is the name of it, if that's correct.
I think that's correct.
And they're talking about this being, it sounds like it's like a paradise island. Like they have really beautiful sunsets. We don't get see the sun, but it takes 9 years to get there.
Yep.
And they don't really have a way to get there without cryo sleep, and they don't have cryo sleep. So the plan is to go up to this derelict spacecraft that's floating around the rings of their planet that supposedly has some cryo chambers that they can pick up, put on their ship, go to sleep, and get to Yvaga. And, like guy at work was like, how do these guys have a ship? Like, are they stealing a ship? And I was like, I think that's their ship that they're working with, because they comment in the movie, like, we were up there 29,000 feet above the surface or whatever they said, and we detected it. So I think it's their ship that they're given by Weyland-Yutani to work.
Yeah. I mean, the way that they're able to pilot the ship, they know the ship. So it makes sense that it is theirs, or at least it's what they're using.
Yeah.
Through the company.
So you want to go, or you want me to
go? So they get up to the space station. They dock, which automatically you're like, well, this isn't going to be good.
Well, it's not good because it's never going to go well, because A, we're watching an alien movie, and B, I think they said it was like a derelict space ship, and they get up there, and it is certainly not a space. It's like a space station, like an outpost that they say. So already, like, things are bad. Like, we're not prepared to go through this thing, but
so this is where we find out the reason why they want Rain and Andy to go with them, because Andy is an android and is able to access the controls of the space station to be able to get in. So, if I'm missing anything, jump in. But they eventually go in, roaming around.
Yeah, I do want to stop you right here at the entrance of the ship, because so the basic setup is Andy is a decommissioned Weyland-Yutani android, like an old model that was found in the trash. Her dad picked it up, reprogrammed him to be like a best friend for his daughter,
to take care of her, basically.
To take care of her. So he does have the access to get them into this Weyland-Yutani derelict space station. But that, when he puts his finger in there and the thing opens up and he shines the flashlight in there, I was like, dude, that's terrifying. Like, you have to crawl on your stomach to get into this damn thing. Like,
well, the whole like tight space claustrophobia, like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, I mean,
no.
For my money, dude, it has to be in an Alien movie. And that's not to say that I don't like Prometheus. I actually watched Prometheus without even knowing that it was a prequel to Alien. I thought it was just a Ridley Scott, another sci-fi movie, and it just happened to look very similar to everything that was going on in Alien. So it wasn't really until the end of that movie that I picked up on it, that it was a prequel. But that being said, it loses that claustrophobic feeling. And that, for me, at least in the original, was the terrifying part of the movie. Don't get me wrong, the alien is the most terrifying part, but the fact that that thing's chasing you in this super tight, narrow place in space where you really have nowhere to run to, that adds that tension to it. It's the same with Dead Space. Like, Dead Space has that same vibe. You know what I mean?
Anything on a spaceship, man.
Anything,
It's dark, and
if you're going to give me space horror, I don't want it to be on a planet in some distant galaxy. I want it to be on a ship.
It's got to be on a
space.
ship.
Yeah, it's got to be. Yeah. And that's saying a lot, because Aliens, if you remember, doesn't really take place on a ship. It takes place down on a planet in like a research facility. And that's my favorite Aliens of all time. So I don't know. It's just, it has to have that claustrophobic feeling to it. And I think that just that entrance to the ship shows it. Like, it's dark and narrow and creepy looking just from the get, before they even get into it.
Yeah, it's just a foreshadowing of what's to come.
Yeah.
So what else happens before they get to the cryogenic place?
Yeah, so they find out that the ship's gravity amplifier or gravity producer or whatever that's on the ship is kind of inactive, but it's purging itself. And this is important for later on in the movie. It purges itself every, I think she says, 5 minutes, where it turns on for like a half a second, turns off. So there is no gravity in the ship. So that again adds to the kind of creepiness for me, where they're like floating into this dark, desolate, wrecked ship. But the plan, like I said, is to go in there. This space station is kind of on a collision course with the I think it's LV-410 is what the name of the planet is. I might be getting that wrong. It has rings around it. Yeah. So the space station is kind of on a collision course with this. So they have 36 hours. And I love that they say, and this is so Aliens or any horror movie, she's like, 36 hours. He's like, we should be in and out in like 30 minutes. I was like, oh man, famous last words, right?
Right.
So basically the goal is to get in there, get these cryo sleep chambers, put them on the ship, and take off. And they have to do that within 36 hours before it collides with the rings and is destroyed.
Yeah.
But yeah, they're going through the station, basically looking. I think they come to a point where they can turn on the gravity, and they end up doing that. So
yeah, because the one dude falls.
Yeah. I think I broke my asshole. That was like one of my favorite lines. But yeah, that's like the typical science fiction thing to do because it's hard to film a movie in zero to make it look like it's in zero gravity. So
Right.
let's flip on the gravity
Gotta turn the gravity
amplifier.
on.
You
Yep.
know. So yeah, they are basically just walking around this derelict. We learn that the name of the ship, it has 2 different modules on it. It's
Yep.
Romulus, obviously the name of the movie, and then I can't remember the other one, Ramos or Ramus or something like that.
Ramus.
Um,
Some
and
type of
it's
like mythology behind that, I think.
yeah, there is. Yeah, it showed it in. I think those are those like Roman gods or something like that,
Something like
mythical
that.
Roman
Yeah.
mythology. There's like a plaque in the ship that explains what it is, but I wasn't paying that close attention to it. So the goal is to get to this cryo chamber, right? That's the entire goal. And I love the kind of tech stuff that we're seeing a little bit through here. We see like they have like a scanner that is detecting the cryo stuff so they know where it's at. I don't know if we see it quite yet, but we can talk about it. The X-ray thing where she like holds it up to her arm
Oh,
and it
yeah.
like
That thing's
shows her
really
bone. I
cool.
was like,
Yeah.
that's freaking sick.
And that comes up later too in a
It
very
does in an awesome way. Yeah, such a cool way to use it. But I mean, we eventually we can really just skip to the cryo chamber because nothing really of note happens. We see that one of the characters is being like a colossal dick to Andy the entire time, and they comment that like I think Rain is like, why is he being such a dick to him? Like I don't get it. And uh, the other character explains like because of what happened to his mom, you know, an android basically killed his mom to save some other miners.
Yeah.
And Rain comments like an android can't help a human or hurt a human. And she's like, yeah, but it can kill 2 of them to save a dozen. So that it can do. So that's why
Yeah.
he's being a dick.
Yeah.
And they have a couple tense moments back and forth. But
Yeah.
let's get to the cryo chamber because that's really where the movie starts to take off.
And that's like not super quick into it. I mean,
No,
that's a
it's
good
not.
like 30-40 minutes into the movie. So they get into this the cryo chamber and there's water. I don't know if it's flooded or whatever.
It looks like it's flooded.
So something happened, whatever. So they see all these things and they're going to get the tubes, the cryo tubes. And they're wrestling with one to try to get it out and it busts open or something, and then the dude that's being a dick gets his fingers frozen by the cryo.
Yeah, which I was like, yeah, whatever, dude.
That's what
don't
you
be
get.
Yeah, don't be a dick. So I guess there are a couple things that we should point on that happen briefly before the scene. While they're walking through the station, they find an android that is like decimated, like missing legs, and it's just completely dead looking on
I couldn't
the
remember
ground.
if that was before this or after.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. And right behind where his legs would be is like a giant classic acid alien hole through the entirety of well, not the entirety of the station, but through a couple floors of the station. They get to the cryo beds, and the cryo beds do not have enough fuel in them in order to get them to the planet that they're trying to go to. So that's why they go to the cryo chamber to try and the fuel depot to try and find fuel. So that should at least be touched on because at least the android's going to come up frequently through the entirety of the movie.
But when do we see so we see the hole, but is that where we find the other android?
That is, yeah, it's right at that hole. It looks like whatever happened melted his legs away and melted the huge hole in the floor.
But he doesn't come back yet.
No.
Okay,
Yeah.
this is later. Okay.
Yeah, I think he like he like glitches out a little bit and like freaks her out and grabs her, and she's trying to, but that's a little bit later.
Okay. So the doors close to the cryo chamber. I forget why.
So when he's trying to pull that thing out, it sets like an
trip
alarm off.
yeah,
It trips
okay.
an alarm and it locks them in there. Yeah.
And then it releases
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if it's I don't know what's going on there.
Were they released or did they? Because it didn't really like break out.
Yeah. So the way inside of this cryo chamber, they have face huggers that are basically on like sealed on boxes. Like I don't even know how to explain it really. They're like
individual
individual containment things, and you see them moving a little bit, but I don't know if it's because of the alarm tripping that stuff like melted that was holding them in and they fell out or whatever. But for whatever reason, they all fall out, and there's like 20 of them. I'm like, oh my god, dude! Like one of these things in past movies was a problem. Like this is going to be a major problem.
Yeah,
right. You know what I mean? And don't get me wrong. Like I think the xenomorph is the scariest thing, but those things are terrifying. The face huggers are horrendously terrifying.
Yeah, man. Because once they get you, you're done,
dude. Yeah,
and they're on you.
And there are like, when we get into it here, there are some like very disturbing visuals with the face huggers that we've really never seen in this capacity before. Like with this, at least 2024 technology for making movies. But yeah, so we have
there's a lot that happens in this scene.
There is a lot.
It's insane. It happens so quick.
Yeah, it does happen all very quick. So basically we have, I think, 3 of them trapped in this room. The 2 male characters and the android.
Andy, yep.
And then the female characters are outside. And Rain is like, I can probably get the little disc out of the other android in the other room's neck and put it in Andy, and he'll be able to open the door. Because for whatever reason, when this room goes into a lockdown, Andy kind of loses his clearance to open the door, and that's where they're at. And they're trying to pry it open, and it's not working. So she goes off to do that. But in the meantime, this is when the facehuggers start falling out. And we have this kind of super tense moment where the 3 in the room are kind of scurrying around, trying to figure out how to get out of this room while these things are lurking in the water below.
Yeah.
And Rain comes back with the disc.
Yep.
And she's like, hey, put this in his neck. Like, this is from that android in there. It should give the clearance. And I thought this was like one of the creepiest parts of the movie. So he puts this thing in Andy's neck, closes it, and then Andy reboots and his eyes roll back into his head, and he's stuck like this. Yep. And even Brady was like, dude, that's terrifying. I'm like, that is pretty terrifying.
And like something about his rebooting like always happens at the worst
moments. Yeah, worst moments, dude. Every time.
Like, come on.
Yeah. So as he's going through this, minute-long reboot, couple-minute-long reboot that he has to go through, the facehuggers start to attack our other 2 characters in the room, and they're fighting it off. And the part that I'm talking about is when he's got it on his face and it's trying to put its freaking thing in his mouth. I was like, dude, no.
It's like flapping around.
It's flapping around, and so it's funny. I always bring this up because I have sleep apnea, so I should be wearing a CPAP, right?
Oh.
But I literally think that it's this damn movie that is preventing me from wearing that thing, because it feels like I have a freaking face hugger on my face when it's awful, dude.
How terrible is that, man?
It's so bad, dude.
So terrible.
It's horrendous. It's like a barbaric device. Like, I can't believe in 2024 we don't have a better way of. There are other ways, but like, yeah, just strap a mask on your face and we'll pump some air down your throat to see if you can fall asleep. Maybe you'll sleep better. Like, how is that? In 2024, that's the option.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's like, I don't know, dude. It's like embedded, like I said, embedded in me from a child that like, I don't want anything wrapped around my face because of this movie.
That's totally logical. It makes sense.
So I think one is like jumping right at one of the characters, and Andy finally reboots and kind of grabs it out of the air. Perfect timing.
Perfect timing.
It kind of looks at it in confusion and flips it into some electrical box on the wall and zaps it. So they get out of the room just in time as like all the, I mean, do you think there's like 10 of these?
At that moment, like when they like shut the doors, they're like a ton of them
coming through,
flying at the door.
And this is one of the shots I love the most in the movie, is when they come out of that door and the door shut to the cryo chamber. One makes it through and latches onto the one chick. But then as they're running up the hallway and the camera's kind of following them, and you see them coming out of the door and like up on the walls and shit, I'm like, dude, that's an awesome shot. Like, that is one of the coolest shots. And it happens actually, that similar a similar scene, that same exact shot with the face huggers happens later in the movie too.
Yeah.
But it's right there, dude. The score kicks in and it's like, oh yeah, it's on now.
I will say, like, between like the lighting and obviously the score, but the sound
Sound is great.
of like,
Yeah.
I'm like, it's just the tension is there, like,
Yeah.
consistently throughout the movie. Like, you cannot breathe without
I think
feeling.
that we at times kind of underestimate sounds in movies and video games and how much that can add to the experience.
Absolutely.
Like if you play like Ghost of Tsushima, the sound in that game is on point. If you remove that, or you can turn it down in the game and play it without it, it loses a lot of its luster. So sound design for me has to be on point. And in this movie, the score and the sound effects are just stellar, dude. Like
Yes.
they are there. They kick in the right moments. And this is kind of the first popping off. Like we had a little tense moment in the cryo chamber where these things were kind of trying to get to him. But now it's like shit's hitting the fan now. Like they're running down the hallways. They have these things chasing after them. They're basically kids, so they have no idea what the hell's going on.
Right.
Like this is 20 years after the first Alien movie, but these things aren't common knowledge. Like not everybody knows what these things are because the company's kind of keeping them hidden in under wraps. So
they
problem,
go back to that original space.
correct. Yep. Where the android was.
And they're able to seal off.
Yep.
So they're good for the moment.
They're good,
but
for
they
the
have
moment.
another issue because that chick still has a face hugger on her face.
She does. And again, man, it's just watching that thing on the face and how it like tightens down around her neck with its tail.
And
Like
pulsating as she's breathing.
Dude, yeah. I mean, for the 70s, what was the first Alien movie? 1979 or 78? I think it's 79. That is like a really sweet design
79.
for an alien. And just to have little details like it tightening, like it literally cuts off her air supply and feeds her its own air to keep her alive so it can impregnate her. And there's a lot of like, I don't even know if I want to say this on the podcast. There's a lot of, let me type it in the chat. I'm not going to say it, but
I think I know what you're going to say.
There's a lot of this about the alien and the xenomorph. If you
I was going to say
it.
Like reproductive / sexual type stuff going on. Yeah.
And it's funny because I didn't pick up on that as a kid, but when you watch the movies as an adult and you kind of understand how this stuff works, you're like, dude, that's like what that thing's basically trying to do. Like that's its whole life cycle.
Yep.
And it's cool because
it's trying to breed and,
it's trying to breed. That's its only goal. Yeah, it's its only goal. And you think like when you're watching it as a kid, the alien's coming after these people to kill them. And that's not what this thing's doing. And we see that in the movie here. Like it's not killing these people. It's even the xenomorph isn't killing them. It's taking them and putting them up in cocoons so that the face huggers can come. And I just think that's way creepier than killing them. Way creepier than killing them.
Yeah.
But
especially what we see at the end.
Yeah, right. Oh, dude. Yeah, don't even get me started on that. We'll get to that eventually. So the problem now is they're trying to figure out how to take this thing off. So they ask Andy, and we didn't really comment on this yet, but this is kind of the switch for Andy's character is when he reboots here. Mm-hmm. So in the beginning, he's kind of slow, telling dad jokes, kind of like very timid, I guess is the best way to put it. And when he reboots here, he is like full on ready to go android. He's
Wayland
on point.
Yeah.
Wayland property. Yeah. And they ask him like, what do we do? And he's like, here, my motor functions are all really good because of this update. And my I'm feeling like a good android, but my database isn't really any thicker. So I have no idea what the hell this thing is, but I can make some assumptions. And that's where he says like it's feeding her air and keeping her alive. And if we take it off, there's a chance that she'll die and she won't be able to breathe, or it will tighten down harder and it will be a problem.
I think this is the moment where they're like, you don't know, but there's someone who might know.
Yeah.
And they point to the android and then hook him up to the computers. and we discover that it is Rook from
Yep.
Alien
It
1.
is. It is. Is his name Rook and Ash? Ash in the Alien 1, the android. Rook in this movie.
Rook in this movie.
Yeah, it's Rook in this movie. So the androids, and I do you play chess?
Yes.
Okay, so the android in Aliens was Bishop. This one is Rook. Those are chess pieces.
Right.
I don't think Ash is a chess piece, right? So that was like a one-off. But it is that character. And this is the part that kind of hinted at earlier on in the episode that I thought looked really good in the theaters, but looks horrendously terrible in 4K on the TV at home. And it's his CGI.
Yeah, it is pretty bad.
I thought when I was watching the theater, I was like, dude, that looks really freaking good. Like, it didn't have that Princess Leia vibe to it from Rogue One, where you could tell it was like kind of funky.
Yeah.
But it actually really does have that when you watch it in 4K. Like, his mouth just, it's not moving right. Like, you can just tell that it's like computer generated. But cool callback to the original. I loved it. I thought it was super cool. They could have maybe done it maybe a little bit better with the lighting to maybe hide his face just enough that you could tell who it was, but you can't make out all the imperfections in the AI they used to make it, or the CGI they used to make it.
Yeah.
But yeah, what'd you think about it? Was it like a shock for you to see him?
Well, it was a long time since I've seen that, and I actually intended to watch one before this, and I didn't get to, but I knew who he was. So it was cool to see him, even though I knew that wasn't actually him.
Yeah, it's funny that you say that, because so Brady wanted to watch this. He's watched pretty much, I think, all the Alien movies that are worth watching, at least. And we sat down to watch it, and as the kind of credits were starting, I was like, wait a second. I was like, let's go back to YouTube and watch a recap of the first Alien, just so you can kind of pick up on a couple things that are going to happen in this movie, because it has been a hot minute since he watched the first one. So we went and watched like a 3-minute recap, just so I could make sure he knew who Ash was and what the name of the ship was and what happened, because you see it at the beginning there.
Yeah. Yeah. That would have been nice to have that kind of recap.
Yeah.
So this is where does he tell them how to take? No, they don't tell him. He doesn't tell them how to take the facehugger off. It's Rain who says, grab the whatever it was.
It's like a cryo gun is what I took it as. Yeah.
So they sprayed this thing to try to like free it from her. And they eventually do, and pulling this thing off her was so...
another moment. Yeah.
Just watching the thing come out of her mouth.
How long it is.
Oh my god.
Yeah, dude. How long it was the disturbing part. I was like, oh my god, dude, that thing is really long. Like, it's longer than its tail.
Yeah.
Like,
it really got down in there because it was trying to impregnate her.
Yeah. And
so they wrestle it off of her, and it goes down the hole, probably to be seen again at some point in the movie, but we can't really tell.
They do talk to Rook, and he offers no information on how to get this thing off, but he does say, like, here, you're screwed. Like, your friend's screwed. The best thing that you can do is run. And they kind of get out of him, like, what is that thing doing? And he says it's planting a seed, and they say, a seed for what? And he kind of points up at the ceiling, and this is where we see the original alien from the original Alien movie, which is what they got in the cocoon at the beginning and brought back to this research station. You actually see the harpoon in it that she shoots him with in the first movie, which I thought was really cool. And it is dead right above that hole. So it's clear that the acid blood melted through that hole. But yeah, super haunting imagery with the lighting, where it's just kind of like hung up in the ceiling. But yeah, it's worth pointing that out. I thought that was a good little thing. But did you feel, I mean, I think it's a little bit more offensive later on in the movie, but did you feel like there was a lot of fan service going on here?
I could see how you would see that, or how anybody would see that. But I don't know. I felt like they were tasteful nods to some of the other things, like even with the game, and I can't remember what it was called, but like some of the things in the ship that you had to do, like certain save points or whatever, were
Yeah, they were in
in.
there. Yeah, the
Um,
telephone.
yeah.
You're talking Alien Isolation?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. I did
And
notice that.
the one pump you had to do or whatever.
Yeah. Dude, I need
I
to go back and play that game, man, because I've never beat it. And that seems weird because I'm a huge Alien fan, and I know that is like and they're making a sequel to it that they
yeah.
just announced a couple weeks ago, which is exciting. But yeah, I did notice the telephone. Really, the parts that stood out for me that were too fan servicey were the quotes that we were getting from other movies. So the android, and it is the
It's from
android that says
Andy
both
that
of
says
them. Yeah, both of them. So the one is, I prefer artificial human myself. That's from Bishop and Aliens, and then one later on that we'll talk about when we get there. But I was like,
Was that
okay, man.
before or after he got the other chip put in his?
It is, one is before. Actually, so one is before and one is after, I believe.
Okay.
So it's not in that moment where he has the chip.
Okay. Because that would make sense, because he would maybe recall
Yeah.
that being said, but
Yeah.
okay.
Yep. So yeah, I mean, there were a couple things there that I was like, I mean, I could have done without the quotes per se. But
The second one that you're talking about, that you're alluding to later on, I'm like, that wasn't even really called for. Like,
I didn't think it was either.
It didn't
It didn't
need to
even
be
fit.
said.
It didn't
Well,
even
and
fit. Yeah.
it's funny because he even like hesitates as he says it. Like,
Yeah.
he almost knows that it's stupid.
He almost knows that it's dumb. Yeah. Now, don't get me wrong. That quote in the movie that it came from was
Iconic.
badass. Yeah,
Yes.
iconic quote, but just it did feel really out of place here. We'll talk about it when we get there. But so the facehugger's off the friend, but Andy talks to Rook, and Rook's like, "Here, you have a new directive, and you need to not let that chick on the ship. Like, we need, you have a new mission." And we don't really, it's kind of mysterious to what the mission is for Andy at this point. We just know that he is not, his prime directive is not to do what's good for Rain anymore.
For her, yeah.
Yeah. So we get in this kind of like tense moment where Andy's like, "Here, man, I can't let you on that ship, and you're not going to get on that ship." And he gets zapped by that freaking whatever space cattle prod thing that dude's carrying around, and they take off for the ship.
Yeah.
And
everybody
takes off for the ship, and Andy kind of chases after him and tries to stop them, but only two of them get into the ship. Or is it three? Might be three.
It's
oh no,
three.
it is three, because one never came out of the ship. She's like sick,
Navarro, Bjorn,
yeah,
and Kay.
Yep. So we might have missed the part where the one girl is pregnant. We did learn that, I think, on the way to the station. She throws up.
Yeah.
Rain kind of holds her hair back, and we learn that she's pregnant. That's very important for later, so we shouldn't have missed that. So apologies there. But so Andy fails to stop them from getting on the ship, and they take off without Rain, Andy, and the other guy, the brother. I don't remember any of their names. So besides Andy and Rain,
maybe Tyler.
Yeah, it might be. And they're basically like jetting off. Like they're leaving them on the space station. Like there's a little bit of a splice in the group here. And this is when we get, like, again, another iconic scene from any Alien movie, which is the chest burster. And it is done so well here.
Good. It's
so good. And it really comes down to the actress that has the chest bursting scene is on point. The X-ray thing is so cool, dude. So we kind of hinted at it earlier. It's like a portable, it looks like the wand that they wand you at the airport with, but it's an X-ray, and you kind of hold it up, and it shows,
it shines
like a bright light, basically. And she holds that up, and you can see it moving around in her chest before it bursts out. And again, yeah, just an iconic scene from any Alien movie. I feel like they all should have a chest bursting scene in them, and this one is maybe one of my favorites. Like the first one's always going to be iconic, especially for watching it like when you're a kid. But when you go back and watch it now, it's kind of cheesy.
Sure.
This is not cheesy. This is terrifying. Every bit of this scene, and it's funny because when it was happening, I said to Brady, I was like, "Oh, he's kind of cute when it's a baby," and Brady was like, "That thing is not cute, Dad." I don't know. I think it's kind of a little adorable.
Oh man, the detail and
Yeah.
and what I can't get over is the practical effects, man. Like minus the CGI Rook, and maybe some other stuff too. I don't really know, but the majority of it is practical effects, like the xenomorph, this little xenomorph baby, some stuff towards the end. Like it blew my mind.
Yeah,
and the way that they look so good.
it does, dude, and it's exciting for the franchise that we're at this point where we can kind of go back to the practical effects for the movies, because there has been some horrendously bad CGI in these movies. And 3, have you ever seen Alien 3?
No.
It's not worth a watch, I don't think. Maybe some Alien fans would disagree, but it is worth going to YouTube after the episode and typing in bad CGI from Alien 3 and seeing how horrendous, because they splice it with a practical alien. A good chunk of the movie, maybe 95%, is really bad CGI, but there are a couple scenes where it's a practical, and it looks so much better, dude. It's like, why this movie would have been actually really good if they used the practical alien instead of this horrendous 1990s CGI alien that looks really bad. Like it doesn't run right. It looks like it's just awful looking. You have to look up a video of it. It's quite funny to watch, but it's good to see that. I will always be a fan of practical effects. I think there are some CGI effects, especially now in like this new age of CGI that we're in. Like Boba Fett's ship from Book of Boba Fett is all CGI, and I think it looks stellar. So we're getting to a point where it's probably going to become less noticeable that they're using CGI, but I always prefer the practical, especially for the Alien franchise, just because it's scarier.
Well,
you know?
I mean, especially since they've done it before and it's worked.
Yeah.
Like stick with that formula because it's worked for you for so long.
Absolutely. So during her chest bursting scene, they're kind of in the cockpit and she starts to have her little seizure that they have. She kicks the throttle of the ship forward and it kind of takes off, kind of circling around the station in like a round thing. And it's like hitting parts that are exploding. So it's like it's like right around here that I was like, dude, what? Just a mass amount of chaos has gone on in the last like 20 minutes. Pure chaos.
Like that.
Just that. Like it was like a chill, like cool little space, awesome shots of the planet, going to the station. And then at the drop of a hat, it was like just pure chaos from that point until the end of the movie, really. And I love that. I love it. But in classic kind of movie fashion, the ship takes off and crashes back into the station that they left. Which I was like, that's kind of
convenient
that they crashed right back into it. But during the chest burster scene, the girl that's pregnant is the one that's holding her as she's having her panic. So we get two kind of parallel stories going on here where she's trying to get out of the ship and get back to the other group, and they're working their way through the station back to where the ship crashed. And yeah, dude, this whole sequence is so tense. Like everything about this. Once that xenomorph pops up, dude, you know, like shit's gonna hit the fan quick. And it's always shocking to me, like how quick these things grow.
Oh my
god!
Like
it's like this big,
and then within like
15 minutes later, it's full grown. It's like what? Like holy crap!
Well,
man.
like especially like the whole ending part, like That's crazy. That
Super
growth
quick.
is insane.
Super quick growth, yeah. And that's part of their lifespan. Like, that's not just movie magic going on. Like, they do grow that quickly in universe.
Right.
But it's here that we get the sequence with the sack on the wall that I was talking about. So as our pregnant character is moving out of the ship, she comes across the dude that was being a dick to Andy. And he's all banged up. He's limping, his hands frozen or whatever. And he sees the sack and he kind of covers her mouth and like, here, be quiet. And he goes and fires up I think another cattle prod that's like on the wall there and sticks it into the sack and zaps this thing. And 20 seconds, zaps it.
It's
pulls it
for quite a minute. Yeah, quite a while.
And it's like
then it
scream that it does in there. It's like, I'm like, dude, you don't know what you're messing with, man. Like, you should run. Like,
for a minute, I'm like, oh, this might work.
It might work.
But then it like sparked and like broke and whatever, and he pulls it out and it's all like melted. And then
melted from the acid. And then
we see the is that the spike from the tail?
It's the tail, yeah.
And we're like,
so sick,
dude. Move.
Yeah. Move. Like, you don't see, like, I get that you're like really curious on the acid on the tip of your freaking cattle prod, but you don't see this giant spike that just came out of that thing you were shocking.
Well, he even like looks at it for a minute, like, I wonder what that does. And then he gets
so quick,
stabbed right in the eye.
So quick.
And he is down
for the count.
The part that, like, I mean, he had no chance, obviously, right?
Nothing,
but he was underneath this thing as the acid was dripping on him. Move, like, roll a little bit, like lay right underneath it and accept it.
If you think about so that thing spikes his eye, basically, right?
Right.
So he's probably completely out of it because he doesn't even really react that much to the acid on his arm at first. Like, it's melting through his arm and he has like no reaction. So I think he's out of it. But yeah, this is again another awesome. Yeah, his hand melting, the skin on his fingers melting away from the acid. And then I wasn't sure what killed him exactly. It
was dripping on his chest, and I think his heart just burst.
Okay, that's what I thought. Yeah, that's what I thought. I wasn't sure what it was. But then we get a tense moment as she's watching this all unfold, and then she sees the aliens start to come out of the sack, and she bolts for the door down the hallway, and she can't get through it because she needs keys to get through it.
Before that, like, kind of like at the same time, we have the other group going through trying to get to them, right?
Yep.
And then they come to this room where there's a whole bunch of face huggers inside, just kind of roaming around. So they're like, all right, we got to raise the temperature to match our body temperature so they can't see us, because that's how they see, is by temperature. But you have to remain calm. Like, no stress, nothing.
Yeah, dude, I thought it was so funny. Yeah.
So they get in there. Yeah. Try to be calm.
Yeah. We're in a space. We're in a derelict space station in the middle of space with a bunch of aliens that are trying to kill us, but just remain calm. Don't spike that temperature any more than it needs to go up. Like, dude, my temp's going to be like 103. Like, I'm freaking out. Okay.
Exactly. Our heart's going to be racing. So they're walking through here, right? They've actually, it seems like everything's going to be okay until the pregnant chick gets on the intercom and starts talking to them. Like, hey, oh my gosh, this is happening. Blah, 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 blah. And the dude starts to get a little tense, stressed out. And then we see the face huggers start to like turn, and like they're starting to notice them. And then Andy is like, run. Yep. So they take off down the hallway, and they're being chased, which is that scene like from earlier where you just see them chasing them down the hallway. The face huggers running down the hall, on the walls, on the ceiling after them.
This is another scene with that shot from earlier where they're running towards the camera and they're chasing him down. That shot is so cool, dude.
One dude lights a flare and throws it, and some of them go after it. It was a really cool,
really well done scene. I was so happy with the facehugger stuff in this movie, dude, because
it was amazing.
Really through the, I don't even know if we've gotten like a multiple face hugger scene before. It's usually
I
just
don't
one
think
of them that's the problem.
right.
And really, it's
And
not
one
ever
is
a
enough.
chase. The one is enough. It's never a chase. Like in the first Alien movie, it pops right out of the egg onto his face. I think we get a little bit of a chase in Aliens where they're like stuck in a room with one of them and they're trying to fight it off, but nothing like this, dude, where you have like 10 of these things going on. But during that moment in the hot room that's heated to the temperature of their body, they start talking to her on the microphone. And she's like, I need keys. And he's like, I dropped the keys. They're around there. They have to be around there. And she eventually finds them. But I'm like, why the fuck are you talking? Like, screw her, dude. Like, I'm not talking. Like, I'm not helping her. Just she'll figure it out. I'm not gonna talk and get one of these things on my face. It's just me personally. Like, I get that I think it is said that they're maybe like deaf and blind and they only detect body heat, or they're maybe just blind and they detect body heat. Rook says something, or Andy says something about it. But I'm like, they're in the middle of this room, like smack dab in the middle, like halfway through it, and they start talking to her. I was like, what are we doing? And they start to kind of wake up and look over in that direction, and that's what sparks the run comment. But I do want to comment, because while this is going on, she's trying to get through the door and talk to this guy and like figure out how to get through it. And the alien is busting out of the sack. And the alien in this movie, and we see it a little bit when it bursts out of the chest. So there are some aliens that have like the clear part of their top of their head where you can see like their brain and their skeleton in there. This is kind of like that, but it changes colors a couple times when he's bursting. And I love that. I love basically all the different iterations of the xenomorph. There are a few I don't like. I don't like resurrections, like half baby, half xenomorph. I don't like. I'll just be frank. I don't like the one at the end of this movie. When we get there, we'll talk about it. But I do like slight variations, like the changing of the colors and that stuff. I think is really cool. So it's cool that they came up with a new kind of design for the xenomorph in here.
Yeah, I loved it because it was nothing can beat, the original. Like that's what is iconic about this thing. Like,
right.
You know exactly, what it is as soon as you see it. There's no mistaking it.
Yep. And it's just there are things about it that are horrendous. Like I said, it's always dripping wet. It has like metal looking teeth. It's got the mouth inside the mouth that comes out. I mean, there's just so much. I mean, I have like 3 or 4 of them on the dresser. You probably can't see them because the Spider-Man figures are covering them, but I have figures of them back there. I just think it's such a cool design. The best. Yeah, I'll say it without question. The best movie alien design that there's ever been. Like nothing in my book will ever come close to how terrifying these things are, from a horror standpoint, at least.
Well, and then what adds to that is their ability to hunt and how well they hunt, like the master hunter.
Yep. Master hunters. And just the fact that once you, like I said, you watch these movies as an adult and you realize that they're not trying to kill you. They're trying to do far worse crap to you. So that is a terrifying aspect of these things. Yeah, that's exactly what they're doing. It's a vicious life cycle, and it's all contained in these 2 organisms. The facehugger implants the seed that bursts out of the chest, becomes a xenomorph. The xenomorph gets more bodies, cocoons them up so the facehuggers can come up, and it's just a vicious multiplication of these things. And like we've seen in all the movies, one of these things is a problem. Like we don't need multiple of them. Like one of them is a big issue.
Well, and I think in the very, very beginning of all this, like when we just had one, it was the shock factor of it because it was new and crazy. Now they couldn't have gotten away with just one. So they had to do like a crap ton of them. And oh my gosh, they did so much with that.
Yeah, it's so good. Yeah.
So pregnant chick finally gets the door open, but doesn't she fall here? Like something happens and she falls down the ladder.
I think she turns around and she's looking back at the alien that's now out of the cocoon, standing in the hallway, and she falls backwards and lands like in the cargo dock area or whatever that is.
This chick,
pregnant
man,
right onto her stomach. Yeah, she's not having a great
she
time. Like she
she's
woke up
not
from a
having.
nap and she's having the worst time of her life.
Feel so bad for her.
I do. I do.
So our friends, our other group of friends, eventually get to that door, to the dock area, but they can't get in. So she finally like comes to, and then she starts her crawl, and
Yeah.
she's
And
underneath
dude,
the. This part is so freaking amazing because
so good.
what I love about it is they're like just showing her perspective.
Yeah.
Because she's under this walkway and she's sitting there, right? And then the xenomorph like lands right above her on this grate. And she's like trembling. Like it's so believable. This actress did a great job.
So good. Yeah.
But the xenomorph eventually goes away. And
Dude, the
then
way that it goes away though. So during this moment while she's crawling, it's on top and it's kind of like following her. But then it takes off and she keeps crawling. And then she looks up and there's like a duct really far away and it's dragging two bodies up into the duct. I was like, dude, that is so good, man. That is so creepy. Like, could you imagine being her? And she sees this thing in the hallway. She falls. Now it's right over top of her. It disappears for a second. She looks up and it's dragging two bodies up the wall into this little hut, this tunnel that he's taken. It is so good, man.
And that's just a nod to like how well they did to fully immerse you into this experience. Like obviously I wasn't there, but I felt the anxiety and the tension throughout this movie. But that scene was really well done, and I felt
good,
it.
Yeah, you feel it
So
all the way through it.
She eventually gets to the door. Andy won't open the door because he knows that the xenomorph is waiting for that to happen.
Just another nod to how smart this thing is. Like it's literally sitting there waiting for them to open the door. Like it's not attacking her.
Hunter.
It's waiting.
Yeah,
it's the perfect hunter.
So the dude is like pleading with Andy to open this scene was, oh my gosh, it just kept like ramping up. Like you felt the emotion here because I don't know, like they didn't really allude to it. I don't think how Andy was kind of processing this scene. Like he was obviously influenced by Wayland not to do that because that wasn't the prime directive.
Yeah.
And then Rain was like, open the door. You got to open the door. You got to let her out. You got to help her. And Andy is smart enough to know that the xenomorph is using the chick as bait. So, and then eventually she is taken by the xenomorph.
Yeah.
Oh my
tailed
gosh.
Tailed right through and picked up with the tail and taken away. And that scene, dude, it's really off the backs of all their acting. Their acting is so good in that scene. And especially Rain's actress, like just the shock on her face when she turns around and looks at Andy, it says it all, man. And then the slap, like everything is so good in that scene. And Andy's actor is just stoic android style, like whatever, man. We gotta go this way because we gotta figure out how to get in here. So we gotta go. But that's important for later. So she gets taken away. She is not shown killed, but she is shown taken away. But yeah, super tense. Probably one of the most tense moments in the movie.
Yeah. So they leave. I think they go back. They go back to Rook. Right?
No, they go down to a research lab as they're trying to make their way. Okay. Yeah. And they kind of
or he's on Rook. On the computer.
Yeah, he's on the computer. And this is I enjoyed this. I even though I kind of been talking shit about it a little bit on the podcast tonight, I do enjoy Prometheus. I think it's a good movie. It was the way that I saw it, I think, that kind of ruined it for me because I had no idea that it was a prequel to Alien, so I wasn't really paying that close attention to everything. But this is a little nod to Prometheus, and this is the goo. Have you seen Prometheus?
It's been a minute, but yeah, I do remember
But you
seeing
have
it.
seen it. So this is the goo that they find in Prometheus, and this is the kind of bioweapon that the engineers were going to come to Earth to destroy the humans with. And it's what kind of sparks the life cycle of the xenomorph. And they're researching this goo. And he says like it's the most dangerous pathogen ever conceived, but if you adapt it a little bit, it can literally like rewrite DNA. So it shows as an example a mouse or a rat getting crushed and then getting injected with this stuff, and it literally
coming back to
reanimates
life.
itself, comes back to life. So now we know that Andy's mission is to get that goo off that station, take it back to Jackson's Rest or whatever the name of that place was. Jackson's Hole. I don't know. So that is now the directive is he grabs this tube and it has like injectors in it of this goo. And that's important for later. But they kind of grab it and take off out of the room before seeing the rest of the video of the rat where it kind of bursts again after it reanimates.
Well, then there's like
yeah, go ahead.
When they're leaving, it pans over and we see the same cage, and it's like all like massive and busted out of the cage and doesn't look normal anymore.
Yep. Nope. Yep. It's like a half xenomorph rat carcass that's the size
Terrifying.
of a German Shepherd.
It's Jackson's Star.
But I thought that was a cool Jackson's Star. There we go. I thought it was a cool little nod to Prometheus, and they even played the music, the score from Prometheus, which I thought was really cool. But we see that that's kind of what they're doing here is they're researching this goo, and just they don't really know that that's kind of what's sparking all the problems here, right?
Clearly not. But at the same time, they don't really care. It's like, we don't care what this is doing. We have a job to do.
Yeah. I mean, it's very, they're not part of the government, but it's very like secret government project vibes going on. Like, we found this thing, we found this goo. Now we're going to, on an outpost out in space, research it, and things go bad. You know, Weyland-Yutani has proven themselves time and time again to just be a ruthless, disgusting company throughout the entirety of the series.
Yeah.
So it's not shocking that all this is happening.
Well,
but
now we know.
They take off. Yeah, but now they know. So they take off. I think the goal now is to get back to the ship. They're going to go back to the ship that crashed because it is still flyable. It just it crashed in the most convenient movie way possible, where it crashed right back into where it left, but it didn't really damage the ship too much. It kind of just landed back into the landing area of the ship. So so they are moving through a hallway, and they're seeing some more of these face hugger containment unit things that we saw earlier in the movie in this hallway. And then they kind of, I think Rain, I don't know who points it out, but I think Rain points out, she's like, oh my God, like, what is going on? And I love Andy's comment here as it's panning through the hallway where we see they've built all these cocoons through this hallway. He says, busy little creatures. I was like, oh, that is such a cool comment, man. Busy little creatures. Just the way he delivers it is so good. But during this, as they're trying to move their way through this area, they hear our pregnant lady that got snatched from the door earlier kind of screaming and take off. And as they're running, we see, he takes off. They kind of chase after him. And as we're going through this hallway, we see that these are actual cocoons with a bunch of people in it with their chests burst open. So now the implication is, it's not just one of these things lurking around. Like, there's a lot of these xenomorphs somewhere. And I loved it. I thought it was cool. I think, it shows it even shows like the face hugger dead after it lays its seed, it dies. And it's like right outside of the cocoon on one of them. So Horrifying sequence, absolutely horrifying sequence seeing these things up
Yeah.
there. There's something about like the way they do like you said, what did you say earlier, like body horror or whatever?
Yeah.
Like
It was,
it's just it's real bad in this movie, man. Like
but
it's bad
like,
in all of them, really. I think Prometheus had some really bad sequences as well with it, and especially Covenant had a couple really bad ones. But yeah, it's on point here for sure.
yeah, there was a bunch going on here.
Yeah.
Is this when I feel like this is really close to the time where they get the rifles.
So yeah, oh yeah, I do. We did skip that. It's right before they get into this hallway. It's in that research lab. I do want to talk about the rifle though,
Yeah,
because I thought it was cool.
very cool. Yeah.
It has like a stock on it that you put kind of your arm down in, and then it like morphs to your body, which I thought was cool. And then it also has like an aim assist to it. So you pull the trigger halfway and just aim at your target, and it follows the target for you. And I was like, that
is very cool.
That's cool. That's cool.
Perfect aim
bot. Perfect aim bot, yeah. But Andy's basically like, you know, I think Tyler's showing her how to use it. And is his name Tyler, or did I just make that up? Yeah,
I think it's Tyler.
And he's like, you only have 495 shots, which for the record sounds like a lot of shots. But Andy's like, yeah, you have 495, but you can't fire a single one of them. And they're like, why? And he's like, do you not remember the acid for blood? If that acid gets loose, it's going to melt through the hull of the ship, and we're going to immediately decompression and game over.
Yep.
So I was like, okay, cool, but why? And he explains, he's like, hopefully these things see that as a threat. And she says, so they maybe, it's a maybe. And he's like, big maybe. I was like, dude, he's so cool, man. This guy, the acting from Andy's actor is just so good, dude. Especially during his Weyland-Yutani section where he's part of them. Yeah, David Johnson does an awesome job. I've never seen this guy in anything before.
I haven't either. I've never seen him before.
I don't know that I've seen any of these.
Rain was in Civil War. She was Jessie. You saw that, right?
Civil War? The
Civil
movie?
War.
Yeah. The new one?
The A24.
Oh, is she the... Oh, yeah, you're right. That is her. She's like the young reporter girl that's trying to get into it.
Yep.
Ah, yeah, you're right.
She was amazing in this.
Yeah, so good. Really, really, really talented actress. So
they're... Excuse me. They're trying to get pregnant chick freed from this, and that like alerts every freaking xenomorph ever, right?
Yeah.
So they like take off back down the hallway, and I don't know. Rain gets, and that's when Andy makes that comment about the gravity or the acid dripping. So Rain gets the idea of turning off the gravity. Actually, no, this is where I feel like Tyler dies.
Yeah. So they're trying to get her back to the ship. She's bleeding profusely. I think they ask Andy, like, is she going to make it? And he hands Tyler one of those shots of the goo.
That's right.
And he's like, whatever, rats share 25% of the genome with humans, and it worked on rats. So he goes to give it to her, but then Rain kind of stops. He's like, wait a second. Like, we're not just going to inject her with this black goo that we just found on this research station, which rightfully so. She's the right one here thinking about it.
Right.
So they don't inject her with it right here. And yeah, I think they take off. They get to like the elevator, and they're trying to get the elevator open. And I think Tyler gets stabbed right through the chest with a tail, trying to save Rain.
Yeah.
And this sequence, this is kind of where you see all the other xenomorphs, because he's kind of taken up through like a hole in the ceiling, and you see them all like coming from the side towards him. And I was like, dude, that's horrifying. Like, what
Yeah.
a terrible day he's having,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. And I feel there's I think Andy at this point becomes incapacitated.
Yep.
So Rain drags Kay, that's the pregnant girl, to safety,
Yes.
and then returns to rescue Andy. She takes out the control chip and restores him back to his original programming. But at this moment, they are now surrounded.
Yeah.
And this is where she disables the gravity, and then she starts shooting like crazy.
Yeah. I thought this was cool though, because she deactivates him, and in the beginning of the movie, he told a lot of dad jokes. So they're sitting there basically waiting to die as these things are closing in on them. And she's like, can you tell me one of your dad jokes? And he tells a couple, but one of them has to do with gravity. And it's like, I read a book about zero gravity. It was so good I couldn't put it down. And that's what sparks her like, oh, wait a second, we can turn the gravity amplifier off, and then I can shoot these things, and the liquid is going to stay, suspended in the air. And that's exactly what she does. And I was like, dude, what a cool sequence of events here. Like, that's a cool story beat. Like, whoever thought of that had their science hat on while they were thinking about it.
It was pretty clever for sure.
Very clever. But she goes ham on these things.
Does.
With the rifle.
And there's a moment where she's like floating in, like about to go into it, right? And she uses the rifle to shoot herself away from it, which was really cool.
So good, dude. Yeah, whoever they obviously very clearly had a science guy on this movie that helped them with some of this stuff, which is always nice because a lot of science fiction movies get science stuff really wrong. So it's always nice to see them take a little bit of care and kind of adapt it to the story. I think Interstellar does that really well. They do it really well here. Obviously we're never going to have gravity amplifiers, I don't think, but the suspending the liquid to stop it from eating through the hull, I think was really cool. Shooting herself in a different direction so she wouldn't get hit by it. But they eventually go up through the elevator shaft. The elevator's not working because of the gravity, obviously. And they start floating their way up through the elevator shaft. And of course, in prime movie fashion, guess what's going to happen while they're in the elevator shaft? This gravity purge that this thing does every 5 minutes. So they're floating. I think Andy gets to a ladder way up. She gets grabbed by like the xenomorph right before she starts to go up the elevator. So they get a little separated.
Yep.
And she's trying to make her way up to Andy before the gravity purge happens, and she falls to her death. And she almost gets there, almost gets to him. And the gravity amplifier turns on, and she plummets, falling to her death. And I thought this was so weird, but it's really actually kind of ingenious when you think about it. She's literally saved by a xenomorph who catches her with the tail and then puts her on the ladder.
Yeah.
Like, I thought that was so weird, but he's not trying to kill her. Like, he's that he needs that. So he's not
trying to position her. Yeah.
Yep.
Was this the part where it was face to face with her?
Yes.
Total callback.
Such a good callback.
She even like looks away.
Looks away from it too. Yeah. That is like a very iconic scene. And it's actually in Alien 3. That scene is in Alien 3. And that's the practical alien, is that part right there. So it looks really good during that. It just looks like shit the entire rest of the movie. Yeah. So yeah, huge callback, but she's in dire straits. She lost her rifle on her plummet. And she's got a xenomorph right there. There's like 15 more of them climbing up the shaft towards her. The elevator is falling now that the gravity amplifier is turned on. So Andy is up there trying to hold the elevator up from falling. Remember, he's an android. He's super strong.
Right.
And he eventually, I think, loses grip of it, and it takes off. and squashes all the aliens that are coming up the shaft.
Except for one.
Except for one, the one that's right next to
Dude,
Rain.
when it like slowly comes out from that hole, I'm like, oh my gosh.
I was like, oh my God. And then the face hugger too comes creeping around the corner. She's like just in a bad situation. And fortunately, Andy is able to get the rifle and he kills the face hugger right before it jumps on her and kills the xenomorph as he's falling down the elevator shaft, lands on the crashed elevator at the bottom, kills it. And this is where we get that quote that I didn't like, which is "Get away from her, you bitch," which is a quote from Aliens, the end of Aliens. But it just felt, like you said, man, it just feels out of place here. And it's like almost like the actor knew it.
He didn't have to say it.
He didn't have to say it. I felt like the first quote was enough of a callback.
Right.
You know? So, but yeah, super intense moment. I mean, really, dude, it's just like from the cryo chamber through the end of the movie. It's not gas to the floor. Yeah, it's gas to the floor, man. We get very little breaks.
Very little breaks. So they make their way back to the ship. I'm trying to think how they got there. Was there much else that happened?
No, I don't think so.
They just
nothing of note. So Kay was back at the ship. This is important. We have to say this. She gets back to the ship. She's dying.
Right.
And she has the black goo with her. So she turns the autopilot on and stabs herself with the black goo. And that is very important for later.
She makes it back before.
She makes it back separately, yeah, because I think Rain sends her up the elevator and then goes back to get Andy.
So they meet up.
They make it back to the ship. Everything seems chill. We're all good.
Wrapping up. It feels like it's okay. They're good.
Yep. And preparing for their trip to Yavaga. Sure. I think that's it.
That sounds right.
They put Kay in the little cryo sleep chamber. She plugs Andy in to charge or whatever the hell she's doing with him. I don't know what's going on there, but he kind of goes to sleep and she's prepping her bed. She pulls her little thing out, puts her fuel in. And as she goes to pull it out, Kay's cryo chamber starts blinking red.
Yep.
Usually a bad sign when something's blinking red. So she pulls her out, says something about like vital signs dying or something. She pulls her out and she's like giving birth randomly to this baby that she was not so pregnant with during the entirety of the movie, but now she is full on like 9 months pregnant, big belly, giving birth. This moment, dude, I was like, it's very graphic.
Body horror to the max.
Body horror to the max on this one. And she gives birth to this baby, but it's not a baby. It's a sack that comes out of her. And even, dude, the umbilical cord, like she pulls the umbilical cord. I was like, dude, my God, like, what
it was so graphic, man.
So graphic. But Kay's basically like, get that thing away from me. So she grabs it and she goes to take it away, but she starts to get burnt by the acid in the sack. So she drops it. Goes back to get that cryo gun thing from earlier in the movie. Comes back to the sack and sees that it's a baby in there. What looks like a humanish baby.
Yeah.
It looks very human. It's very pale, but it looks like a human baby. And then the acid eats through the grate and it falls down into what looks like sand. I guess it's like mining material that they were mining, I assume. So she takes off down after it. She eventually gets to the sack and the sack is empty. And we see these little footprints that go away from the sack and up a little wall into another area.
They get massive.
Quickly. Yeah, very quickly. And she's looking for this thing. Andy finally wakes up. because the ship is no longer on autopilot. It has stopped its autopilot, so it is slowly plummeting towards the rings that the space station crashed into. And he eventually finds Kay in the corner, like dying. She's like reaching in her shirt and pulling out like goo that's coming out.
She's lactating the stuff.
She's lactating the goo. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
And it's so ridiculous, dude. I freaking hate the ending of this movie. I gotta be honest. So eventually this thing makes its way back to Kay, and it is now like 9 feet tall.
Massive.
It is massive. It's like
which was played by a real dude.
It was played by a real, like a basketball player, I think. It looks, if you go look up a picture of him, you're like, oh yeah, that's the dude. They didn't do anything with his neck. Actually looks like that tall. Like that's how big his neck is in real life.
Crazy.
It's very creepy. But this thing is like a half xenomorph, half human. And it's come back to its mother to feed her, I guess, is what it's trying to do. But it eventually just like sucks the blood out of her or whatever. I don't know, dude. How do you feel about this whole ending of the movie?
I mean, it was very shocking. Like, because I thought it was like wrapped up. Like they did it. They were done.
So did I. Yeah.
And then, but this, like what I said in the beginning about like some parts about it were predictable. I knew something was going to happen with her. I just didn't know when. But when this part happened, I'm like, okay, maybe they're okay. Maybe they did it. But then when her thing started beeping and going crazy, like, okay, here we go.
Yep. You always got to have that one last scare.
It's like
in horror movies, you know.
I've read somewhere it's like the 4th act of Alien. Like they always have this moment where like everything seems okay, but then it's not. Like there's one more thing.
Yep.
Before we're done, we're gonna throw this at you.
Yeah. And honestly, if you think about it, those are really the most impactful scenes in all the Alien movies. Is that last scare moment? That's where we get the. I can't. Is she singing in the original? I can't remember what song she is singing. It might be like "Twinkle Twinkle Little Star" or something as she's suiting up to put the suit on so she can blow this thing out. Super. One of the most horrifying scenes in the movie is that last scare scene where it's on the escape pod that she got away on. And there's a lot of callbacks in this scene here in this movie from that, especially the putting the suit on. Yeah. Putting the suit on. But yeah, this thing basically decimates his mother. Kills Andy. Well, you can't kill Andy, but disables Andy by hitting him. And there's just a lot of really like horrifying imagery here too, like with the smoke going on and the flashing lights in the background, and you see this thing in the
I feel like that was one of the things that did it for me was the lighting and like the flashing lights.
Yeah.
And like the running lights down the hallway or whatever, kind of like in sequence. It was so good.
Yeah, so good. But I will say that so eventually she gets this suit on. She deactivates the cargo module on the ship that has this thing in it, and it falls towards the rings, and she holds on to like a wire, and she's kind of dangling there. And then we get one last scare as this thing is like disintegrating in space, whatever we want to call it. I don't know if they even named this thing the hybrid
child.
Tell me if I'm wrong. So you've seen Aliens. So you know the queen at the end of the Aliens.
Yeah.
That she fights in that like forklift thing. Would it not have been cooler if this thing was just a queen and not this half hybrid humanoid looking weird basketball player with makeup on?
I mean, it didn't bother me a whole lot. I mean, it was jarring and like terrifying. Like I feel like the whole like it was still so freaking tense. Like after being like feeling like I could breathe again after all that had just happened, and then being shook up again, like it was just all happening so fast. I kind of like. I mean, I wasn't in love with the whole thing, but like I did enjoy the last bit there. Um,
Yeah.
but the queen, I mean, there were no queens in this at all. Like
No,
no
it's
queen.
only ever been there might have been one like in one of the Alien versus Predator movies, but really in the main franchise, it's only been in Aliens. And I think that is a big misstep because to be honest with you, the xenomorph, don't get me wrong, terrifying. I will probably forever have nightmares of that thing. The queen, however, that thing is horrifying, especially in Aliens. Just the way it breathes, like it's just horrifying. It's laying its eggs and stuff. I thought it would have been way cooler. So
Yeah.
when I saw this in the theater, I walked out of it like, what the hell was that ending, dude? Like that was awful. Like, what are we doing? Like they ruined a really good movie with that horrendous ending. And I think I have bad memories from Alien Resurrections, half human, half xenomorph baby thing that they had in that, which is almost
Yeah.
somewhat similar to this, just not even remotely scary. Um, but on my second rewatch and third rewatch, I think I do enjoy the ending. I think it is a good scare, one last scare. It's a good tense moment. It's good callbacks to the original as she's putting her suit on. It would have been cool if she was singing like some sort of space oriented song like the original.
Right.
But yeah, I thought it was okay. But they take off. Andy and Rain are the only two survivors. Andy is banged up beyond recognition, and she vows to save or fix him. And they take off to Yavaga, and that is
And
where we end. She gives like a transmission.
yep, which is another callback,
Another callback.
which
Yeah,
is to Ripley.
yeah. Last remaining survivor of the. I don't remember what the ship was called. It did have a name, but I don't remember what it was. But she says it, and that is how the movie ended.
yes.
So yeah, overall, man, I ate it up.
Oh,
I ate it
I
up
loved
every
it.
minute of it.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think
it
it's
was great.
just it was very refreshing coming from Prometheus and Alien Covenant to kind of go back to where we started. You know what I mean? With that tense, claustrophobic, stuck in space feeling, not down on a planet where we could run in any conceivable direction, but we're going to go to the worst possible location.
Right.
Um, like every horror movie, you know?
Absolutely, absolutely. The practical effects, the sound, uh, the lighting, it was all this dude, this producer, what's his name? Is it what
Ridley
is it?
Scott.
No, the guy who did Romulus.
You're
Fade
talking the director?
Alvarez, director.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah, the
I'm
director.
sorry. Um, really nailed it, man. Like,
Yeah, I agree.
and I don't know if there will be a sequel, but I kind of hope there is. Like,
I hope
and
there
I
is.
and I hope he directs it.
Yeah. I hope there is. And I know that a lot of people there are people that really enjoyed Prometheus and Covenant and wanted that story to continue.
Yeah,
And I think to be honest with you, I think like that story is perfectly fine being cut off where it's at right now. Like
yeah,
there wasn't really I don't know where else they were going to go. I think Prometheus was a good kind of early prequel to the franchise. Covenant kind of brought it back a little bit to Alien. We get to see a xenomorph in it, which was exciting. But this, dude, this is the kind of Alien movie I want. And I hope that they stick with, even if it's not a direct sequel and we see what happens with Rain and Andy, as long as they
right.
keep going in this direction where we're kind of going back to the old movies, this is what I want out of the franchise personally.
Yeah, that I felt as I was watching it, like this felt right. Like this is what it should have been every single
Yeah.
time. Like, why couldn't they keep this formula? Why did it take so many years to come back to it?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I have no idea. And it's cool now because they can do it with the visuals in it make it so much better. The score makes it so much better. The lighting, everything about the sound effects make it much scarier. So it's nice to see them come back to it. Whatever the hell happened to Alien 3 and Alien Resurrection, I don't know what was going on in those guys' heads. But that was kind of the first fall of the franchise, were those two movies. And then it kind of, Prometheus brought it back a little bit. It's a different kind of story. It's not really horror. It's more of a exploration of where these things came from. Yeah. Covenant. I just enjoy the universe. I love the ships. I love seeing them in cryosleep. I love them sitting down and having their breakfast. It's just a cool universe.
I need to go back and watch 1 and 2 just to, because this has like stirred up a bunch of stuff now. Like, I need to go back and watch these movies because
you do. And tell me that queen wouldn't have been way cooler, because I want that queen back so bad, dude, in one of these movies, because they could do because they did a horrifying job with it. It made it horrifying in the 80s. I can only imagine what they could make this thing today.
Oh, right. Right.
The queen, man, when you and it's funny because I don't remember how old Brady was when he watched Aliens, but he has a fairly weak stomach. So I was like very hesitant, like, dude, I don't think you're old enough.
Are you
like,
sure?
You're gonna freak the heck out if you watch it. You sure? He's like, yeah. He watches Alien, does fine. Watches all of Aliens, perfectly fine. Soon as we get to the queen, he's in the toilet puking. I was like, yeah, dude, I told you the queen's scary. Literally terrified him. So
wow.
He's like, it's just her breathing, Dad. That breathing is just nasty, dude. It's so scary. But I thought it would have been cooler because she was pregnant if it birthed the queen, and that's how the queens are born. But I guess we'll never find out. Maybe. And I will say, I was, and this is I'm going to admit something on Showboys that I probably should never admit. I was this close to buying an Xbox Series X so I could play Starfield. This close. I'm talking like in my cart, ready to go, and I backed out. But now that I watch this, it's like it's getting worse. It's getting worse. Especially when I watched a review of Starfield, and they said it was like if Alien and Interstellar had a baby. That's what the Starfield story would be like. I'd be like, oh my god, dude, this is like two of my favorite space things of all time.
Like
Starfield,
Alien.
yeah.
All right. On that note.
But I didn't do it. I didn't relapse back to Microsoft for good. I thought about just renting one. I thought about just renting an Xbox somewhere so I could play it. Because there's a good chance I'm going to hate it. So I don't want to spend $500.
Probably will hate it. And then you'll hate yourself for it.
Right.
You should have listened to yourself.
Yep.
Oh, man. Well, any final words?
I don't think so. I think we covered it pretty good.
Well, if you couldn't tell by now, we both love the movie and we definitely recommend it. So you should definitely go watch it and tell us in the comments and blow up our Discord about how much you love this movie. But yeah, please like and subscribe and follow us everywhere you can follow us. Like everything that we have, yada, yada, yada. We have a very cool series coming up. If you haven't seen, we just released a promo video for season 2 of Arcane that's coming up. So be on the lookout for that. I think first episode is next week. So that's the
build up episode.
Episode 0, I think.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So be on the lookout for that. Very excited for that series. So yeah, thanks again for tuning in, and we'll see you next time. Peace. Whew. All right. Good.
Sweet.